Mr. Srikrishnan Keech. And of course, he's known more as Keech, and I'm going to refer him as Keech in this show. And I'm very honored and very privileged to have Keech on my show. He is the MD and the CEO of Karnataka Bank, a very, very senior banking professional. He's been MD and CEOs and had been at board levels. He's covered commercial, retail, transactional banking, and even technology and payments, which is what I'm going to talk to him on this podcast. He has had almost more than 35 plus years of working experience in India as well as overseas. Not just banking, but Keech has been a successful, and I have to stress this word, successful entrepreneur, and he's co-founded very successful startups such as Vayana and Clayton Technologies. And we're going to talk a lot more on in this show because as we all know how much of you guys are interested in tech world, scaling up businesses and attracting marquee investors. So first, let me welcome Keech on in this show. Hi, sir, and welcome to this episode of The Sound of Money.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you. It's my privilege to be part of this show. And you may call me Keech rather than the Sir business.
Okay.
I think that, that would be far more cool.
Absolutely. So, Keech, I saw your career profile. You started off with Bank of America, and that too with 11 plus years of experience. Then moved on to HDFC Bank, equally good number of years you spent there. And these are the banks which were in their initial days of, startup, as I would say. Nowadays, the word startup has got a lot of attraction, but they themselves were startups. And then you moved on, you had a stint in Emirates Bank. So you got that overseas experience, so to say. And then you also moved into Yes Bank. And not just banking, sir, but Keech, you say that you also got experience in as a startup, as a co-founder on some amazing names, brand names today, as Vayana and of course, Clayton. How has been this successful journey been for you as a person?
As you rightly said, Santosh, the baseline for my career, my work life, has started with Bank of America in Chennai, 748 Mount Road, as we fondly call. That's the address. That address no longer exists technically for Bank of America. And that was the dream job. That was the entry-level job. In fact, while at college, I studied both my undergrad as well as grad, which is in Chennai parlance called postgrad, was in Chennai. So both were in Vivekananda College and Loyola College, respectively. My schooling was also in DAV Higher Secondary School. Whenever we passed through, Mount Road, now it's called Anna Salai. Obviously, there are lots of this granite facade buildings. This included the U.S. consulate and the Citibank, Bank of America, those days. And I used to dream to say that if at all I need to work, I'll have to work in one of those, granite facade buildings. So it was just a, what do I say, a fancy kind of a situation.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be true. I did one entry-level job as soon as I graduated way back in 1981, undergrad, BCom from Vivekananda College. Then I was with General Electric as a graduate trainee. That was a 3-year training program. Then confirmed, they used to conform as officers within various functional areas. Then this job at Bank of America came in, and this was, because of the FTE reason, they said that they would take me only in January of 82, at which point of time I actually kicked off the earlier job and then went on a sabbatical, without even starting a career, and thereafter joined. So that was the entry-level job. So this was a fascination in terms of what kind of job that I needed to do. So I think, the baseline career, everything related to basics, the basics of banking, and those days were the manual ledgers, which include the, the yellow ledgers and the white ledgers, as we fondly remember. And these were the days when I learned everything. I was a GL bookkeeper in the branch in Chennai. And then there were also other functional areas that I was part of. Many of the areas mostly covered during my 3-year stint. I also did my postgrad, which was at LIBA, which is Lilo Institute of Business Administration in Chennai. And this was an evening college course. And I had to run between my work as soon as I finished, and then hop on into a bus in the initial days, and then thereafter a scooter to college. Then thereafter, late in the evening, assignments, weekend assignments, group assignments, and so on. But then life continued with Bank of America, learning the ropes. So everything related to basic banking skills was the fundamental part done at Bank of America, Chennai. When I completed my LIBA, then they transferred me for a short assignment to Mumbai. And I think, that was a huge exposure, because dropping a youngster who's hardly 23 years of age, and then dropping them into the concrete jungle of Mumbai, and then the commercial and the financial capital of India. So obviously that was a huge change without knowledge of the language. And of course, the only knowledge that I had was the basic banking skills that I had picked up in Chennai. But it was so useful, and I think, that won the support of most others in a Mumbai scenario, because as we normally say, knowledge wins support of others. And that's technically the way that, I really grew. So there were lots of learning, and the learning still continues, as I always keep telling the youngsters that, my learning has never stopped, even now. Which is where I think, a lot of this entrepreneurial startup, as well as new kind of businesses within the same organization. So the journey continues. So just to complete the response for your question, yes, Bank of America initial days, post that, I did short stints in Calcutta, I did in Delhi as well, and then went back to Mumbai, in the 6th year of my career, and then stayed there for a while. So my Mumbai stint has been the most compared to any other city so far. And it's over 34 years if I count all my various stints together. So obviously I learned much more than where I was even born, and then the initial career, including education. But having said, the roots of Chennai still remains with me. So, I can be taken away from Chennai, but they can't take the Chennai out of me. So obviously, Tamil speaking, a lot of basic, let's say, habits that were there. So, but in Chennai, it was so enterprising, because, despite all these challenges, I used to play a lot of cricket for the bank as well as outside. A lot of other extracurricular activities, including watching movies and, socializing with friends and so on. So this is a huge, kind of networking that I started off in Chennai, and that I never stopped. So this has been the basic. So basically, Bank of America, and thereafter I went off to just the sequence to get it right. After Bank of America, I went to Middle East in 7 years of Bank of America. So I did spend a short assignment in Emirates. It was an open-ended job, so there was no reason to kind of really cut it short. But the specific role that I handled was that Emirates Bank had acquired a bank called Middle East Bank. And there were 39 branches of Middle East Bank which had to be migrated and integrated with Emirates, the parent. And also this included not just the branches integration, but also technology, operations, as well as the business and the people, more importantly, had to be kind of integrated. So it was a huge job. I was project managing the whole effort. I completed it much earlier than what was the originally envisaged timeline of 2 years. And so I was put on to other roles within the head office. And then got this offer from HDFC Bank to be part of a startup India private sector bank generation. And it was the mid-90s where a lot of these banks really came up, thanks to liberalization policies of the government. And of course, a lot of promoters from India, large corporations who were setting up banks. So HDFC Bank was one of the leading, ones in that pack. So I had an opportunity to join them again as first as the head of Western India operations. Thereafter, I took on the head of India operations, and then of course head of transactional, banking and operations for the entire country as a country head. But a lot of entrepreneurial part of my journey started there, because the bank itself was so entrepreneurial. Of course, with the leadership that we had to notably call out Mr. Aditya Puri, who was my mentor, boss for the first 10 years of my career with HDFC Bank. And I thought that, it was a fabulous time, because it was not just Mr. Puri, but also the excellent colleague, community that I had. most of them peers, part of the founding team at HDFC Bank. I
Hmm.
think we had a wonderful time because one, we were able to start our businesses. So in multiple ways, it was a startup. Secondly, anything and everything we had to kind of think entrepreneurially, start from scratch, how to kind of achieve leadership position, how to
True.
be in top three initially, and then kind of get to the leadership position. These are all some tricks that we learned together.
Okay.
And we did achieve most of those
Yeah, of course.
mission statement that we had spelled out for ourselves.
Yeah.
And of course, thereafter, spending a lot of time, I was also nominated into a couple of boards where the group had invested, HDFC
Hmm.
Limited or HDFC Bank had
Hmm.
invested into a couple of companies,
Yeah.
and this included some tech companies as well.
Okay.
So my career has been a little technology and user, kind of
Yeah.
oriented.
Hmm.
So it has not been the most traditional way of,
Banking. Hmm.
banking.
Yeah.
But having said that, the basics that we learned, we applied into each one of these new developments and whatever that we kind of really created for the new age millennials, as well as the new age population,
Yeah.
which was essentially turning out digital.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple of areas of specialization that happened in the course,
Hmm.
which included specialization in payments technology,
Yeah.
payment business, and then,
Hmm.
of course, a lot of transactional banking business, which was contributing, very, very significantly to all of the bank that I work for.
Yeah.
So this has been the overall kind of, let's say, achievements, learnings,
Yeah.
as well as making sure that, we have actually built and scaled up businesses so far.
Hi. Do you want to know how leaders who were born, bred in India have made it finally globally on that stage? Do you want to learn the secrets that might have helped Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella really get up right there to becoming global heads of organizations? If you want to learn all that, then you better learn from global leaders. We have Sanjay Tandon coming in from Silicon Valley. We have Kalyani, who's been the Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems. We have Srikrishnan, who's the CEO here in Karnataka Bank. We have Ram Kumar, who's been here as the head of FIS for India and Philippines. We have so many leaders right here who will share their stories, give you tips. So you need to sign up quickly for May 3rd and May 4th, which is the Global CXO Accelerator Summit. And it's happening right here in Bengaluru. So wherever you are, whichever city, book your tickets and see you here, because we're going to have a 7-day event. 5 days online and 2 days live. And when you book your 2-day pass, you could win gifts up to 89,000. So click on the link below and I'll see you there.
Yeah. Keech, you brought out a very important point, and a lot of bankers, who started their banking in the late 80s and 90s, and even before, were manual banking, right? The ledger banking, actually calculating. Even calculator probably came in later. And I've seen many, because I have worked with my colleagues in Bank of Madura, because I was in ICICI Bank. Whilst we were using the calculator, you had the Bank of Madura guy actually calculating it literally like in a jiffy and telling me before the calculator tells, right? So a very important point that I wanted to highlight, which you brought out actually, is adapting to change, because you had to adapt from literally a manual banking. Then you handled projects in Emirates Bank. Then you also had technology, which is your niche now. And how did you adapt to change? The reason I bring this question, Keech, is you have a lot of youngsters now, who want quick results, quick, achievement, progress, or whatever, promotions. But it's not an easy game. It is a lot of perseverance. It's a lot of patience game. How, maybe you could share your experiences and how did you manage or adapt to that change?
Yeah, I think, it's very clearly reflecting in the minds of today's youngsters. That includes even my own children, who ask me that, how did you even work in one single company for more than 10, 12 years?
Yeah.
This is something which is a question which remains unanswered in the
Yeah.
family. But I think, a lot of these youngsters of today are restless. That's because they have not gone deeper into what goes behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah.
I think, that is the fundamental reason. So as I was saying earlier, what went into the ledger bookkeeping essentially is an understanding of debits and credits.
Yeah.
And the basic understanding of debits and credits and the various kinds of transactions that originate from customers, and then internal transactions that also originate for settlement and which is essentially payments and settlements.
Yeah.
So then what happens is that you actually get a complete overview from the top, and it's a complete 360-degree overview that you get of what happens in a branch scenario, and then how the consolidation happens during the day, end of the day, and then end of every milestone, which is monthly or whether it is quarterly and so on. So obviously all of these things contribute, because this is exactly what went into the backend of building what is called the core banking solution.
Yeah.
So the core banking solution essentially is the pipes, as far as any building is concerned, more akin to the pipes.
Yeah.
Once it's you have a building, the pipes get into the background, and then similarly core banking also kind of gets into the background. But very few people realize what has gone into the building and into the pipe, because that is where the plumbing really happens.
True.
So the plumbing is exactly what core banking is, and I think that is the credit that I have to give to the manual kind of ledgers and the processes that we had adopted. So that is what I called as the baseline learning in my early days of the career. The second part is that I also was part of a golden period where organizations, including Bank of America, actually thought through and also went through this transition from the manual ledgers into the automation.
Yeah.
And automation, obviously, the low-hanging fruits at every such opportunity are the back office ledgers and making sure that you go a little paperless.
Yeah.
But having said that, there are a lot of processes that you need to integrate, because what originates in the front end and how it is converted into a transaction in the back end, how does it kind of balance itself, and then how are the reconciliations done automatically, and then of course how the settlement happens, and making sure that there is every aspect of risk, compliance, and control, which is also kind of ensured in the process. And that, I think, is the key. So obviously, I was part of those processes where the first ever conversion of the Indian branches of Bank of America from manual ledger system into the first core banking solution. Those days, it was called Bank Master. And that was the project that I had handled across all the 4 branches. So being part of that actually helped a lot. What it really helped is that it gets a brilliant overview about the whole process, the whole integration, and also how to kind of adapt yourself to the new way of functioning. So the new way of life, and then the business that you can actually generate because of this, because gone are those days when we used to actually do the inter-branch settlement between a Mumbai and a Chennai in a manual scenario, but a lot of control. But then if you really replicate that and apply the same kind of control mechanisms into an automated system, then what happens is that the processes that you define and the SOPs that you actually follow actually make sure that your old manual control system is not forgotten, and it is actually maintained, but it is done more efficiently. So this is exactly where the transition happened, where I could make out as a group, we could make out that operational efficiencies that were coming up very clearly. A lot of control and regulatory tools were automatically coming, reporting, and so on. Then how did we kind of really apply those to front end, and then how did we convert this into business opportunities, which is alignment of technology into business and alignment of business into technology. And this is a huge jump, and that happened as a next phase in my career, where we launched a lot of technology related business, both in Bank of America as well as the rest of the bank that I work for, where a lot of dependency was on the automation, and it was not digitization. So there is a lot of difference between automation and digitization, which you will appreciate. But that is the latest trend, which is what we are all working towards in the last, let's say, decade or so. But then up to that point, it was all to do with automation. But then how do you kind of make sure that across corporates, across mid-size or large corporates, across consumers, and how do you bring them all into an ecosystem whereby they access the bank, through their channels, and then offer them alternate channels, etc. Now that has been the way that we have actually gone through this entire process. But every one of this actually we could leapfrog, because this is the other part in India where we did not really follow through the sequential model adopted by any other Western world. So this is where I think we made a lot of difference, because we not only jumped, we leapfrogged into the latest that was available in the country whenever we kind of adopted anything. And how do you adapt yourself? That's the first one. But how do you get your team to adapt? How do you get your customers to adapt? How do you make sure that you are part of an ecosystem which is really adopting this new way of life? So that I think is a trick, and that is a big learning, and that's continuously happening even now as I speak to you, Santosh.
Indeed. In fact, you delved into technology space, and more so with your your startups. And I would love to know, and I'm sure our audience would love to know, because startup culture is really catching up. In fact, it has already caught on, and people are really hooked on to startups. Do let us know about your startup culture, both the Vienna and of course the Clayton. The reason being, you to even get into a startup, you had to start yourself. And what really clicked that thought process that it's a time for me to get into this and leave mainstream banking in some way?
Yeah. So what happened was that, I had almost completed 20 plus years in banking at that point of time. And normally in today's world, people at the age of 20, youngsters at the age of 20 want to kind of start up something. They have very bright ideas. But, the number of such ideas that come into fruition that really see the light at the end of the day are very few. But obviously, the encouragement that today's parents as well as today's world gives them is immense. So that is a different kind of a scenario right now, and particularly where I live now in Bangalore. Anything and everything, is all about how to kind of, make sure that there's a new way of life. And how to convert that into a business opportunity. So that is exactly what the startup opportunity was. So mine started quite late, as I said, after the 20 years of my banking career. But my banking career itself was so entrepreneurial right from the beginning, Bank of America included, but all the more in, HDFC Bank, where then thereafter I did the startup, at Yes Bank, where it was just the founders and me. I was also part of the founder, team at Yes Bank, and we did a very, very different kind of a bank because the mid '90s saw a lot of this new gen private sector banks, and at that point of time, the difference that this generation made was to kind of bridge the gap between what was not available in a PSU bank and what was available in a MNC bank. So that was the bridge that really was, the gap that was filled up. But at Yes Bank, we needed to be specialized. So which is where we went into some 3-4 verticals that we chose, including the agri vertical, and made sure that, there's a lot of knowledge that we bring to the table in the form of research reports, and also making sure that the vertical, the entire the supply chain, the chain related to agri processing and the farm to plate, etc., each of those were handled. And also these were handled differently because we were no longer just a working capital bank. We were also a project finance bank. We were also helping entrepreneurs. We were helping them to scale up. We had actually done a lot related to even taking them public and bridging the gap at that point of time, both in terms of financing as well as in terms of knowledge. So a lot that happened, which is a combination of investment banking, advisory, corporate, as well as the transactional banking, all of this put together. And I think that was the difference. Now, after the 20 years, there was some identification that we had based on the experience, saying that there are still a lot of gaps in the payments and as well as in the trade industry. And which is when me and my co-founder, he was actually an associate right from 1995, when I was the first bank customer for a company called CashTech. So CashTech was a leader in the cash management solution space. And this was a bunch of professionals, all from IIT, IIMs, who had got together based on their erstwhile experiences to fill in a gap, which was essentially providing a back office and a solution application platform for cash management business, which is basically liquidity business, account receivable, account payable management, and also part of trade. But then trade is always a very complex subject. And this is where my co-founder Ram Iyer and me got together sometime in 2008, when he had also kind of, he was done and, dusted with that venture. Which they sold, at that point of time. Earlier, but even his, earnout period was completed then. So he and I discussed, at which point of time, I think, I was also wanting to bite the entrepreneurial bug, which is exactly what happened. So the two of us co-founded this company in 2009 after my 5-year term with Yes Bank ended. And at which point of time, there was a gap, which was essentially the SMEs who were really at the receiving end, because they neither had access to very sophisticated bank kind of funding, nor they had the technology to kind of access through these channels. So we bridge the gap by making this digital and making sure that the entire invoice processing platform for the SMEs, which they generate either as a supplier to a large corporate or a buyer from a large corporate. So essentially the entire supply chain, the buy sell as well as the sell side of the corporate, we were bridging the gap digitally and making sure that whatever that gets generated in a physical form gets digitized, without any effort. And that's a secret sauce that, we brought at that point of time. We did it in two parts so that the audience also is aware. Clayfin and Vaina were one at that point of time when we started. So it was one company, which is what we started called Vaina. We had acquired a company called SolutionNet, which was in the digital banking space. Over the first about 6-7 years of operation, from 2009 to almost 2015, we actually ran it as one enterprise, and we were serving banks, including large banks in India and Middle East, and also taking care of their access channels, which included the internet, both corporate as well as retail, and the mobile platform, and that still continues. And that is part of the business, which is a product company called Clayfin Technologies. Over the journey, as part of the overall setup there, sometime after the 6th year, there were lots of investors and the market who felt that the two businesses were very distinct. And one was a invoice discounting platform, which is basically a supply chain trade exchange. And domestic is where we started, but now we have gone global in that company. And there's an international trade exchange also. There's also a reverse factoring setup, which is there. But that was originally the idea, where we thought that with a banking relationship through a product, we could kind of expand the relationship into the trade and into the invoice discounting platform also. But over a period of time, that the market actually encouraged us to do that independent of this product company, which is where the split happened. So there was a little bit of a churn that happened in terms of both the cap table as well as the overall investor profile. And these two businesses are running independent of each other right now, with separate investors, separate set of boards. And of course, Ramaswamy Iyer, Ram Iyer, he runs Vaina as the CEO and the MD CEO right now. And, I was there part of the journey when then I took up this role at Geo, which is when, due to the regulatory requirements, I had to make sure that, I stay away from all this. So I have never been involved in the business ever since, other than my coordination for anything critical that happens. Then thereafter, sometime after I took a break from Geo, I was involved in some kind of support related to fundraising and so on. That has been my forte right from the beginning. So all of whatever we did in Vaina related to the initial stages of getting investors, and then making sure that the financial engineering of the whole company during the tough time, turbulent times, etc., was something which was great fun to do together with the co-founder as well as the management teams of both the companies. Both these companies are running independently with marquee investors on both sides. And so that probably sums up my entire entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely.
But my
Fantastic.
entrepreneurial journey has not stopped. So I have continued. Again, Geo was another startup where we set up the entire financial services practice for Reliance Industries.
Okay.
And of course, there were lots of independent individual entities that were there, part of the overall structure. And we had, in fact, during my tenure also, we had presented this to the various internal groups, including promoters, on what are the synergies that, we could bring together. And I'm very happy that, 1.5 years after I left, this project has been taken up and the entire Geo Financial Services demerger has happened. So that's a journey which is, again, I'm very proud that, I was part of the initial, setup stages. So my entrepreneurial journey continues. Today at Karnataka Bank, this is the 100th year of the bank.
Wow.
99 years, the bank has delivered consistently year-on-year profits. And 97 of the 99 years, they've actually delivered dividends to stakeholders.
Wow.
So this is a very traditional legacy bank. But when I've come in, I've completed about, more than 100 days in the bank. And one of the early thing that I did was to declare that we are a startup at 100.
Fantastic.
So we are a 100th year startup. So I am encouraging all the 9,000 workforce that we have, all my colleagues, the family kind of behavior that we have, because we are known as a family bank. But on the other side, we are encouraging them to turn out to be more entrepreneurial, think entrepreneurial, and then make sure that, we take this bank to different heights, greater heights, through this entrepreneurial journey that we would embark upon. We have already done that. So we have done a fair amount of work in the last 100+ days, which includes, funding, the capital raising part, as well as a lot of changes that we have done from the cultural and the technology perspective also. But this is a journey which has just begun. Obviously, it's a continuous journey. It never stops. So I'm just being a mentor to all the youngsters and making sure that this bank also has all the sharpness to kind of compete with the new generation banks, because there is no reason to be classified as an old gen private sector bank.
Not at all.
It's really speaking, thing that really categorizes us. So why should we be called, or a bunch of our peer group bank be called as old gen private sector banks? We can be as new gen and serving for the Gen Z and probably in the future generations. The differences that we have to make is essentially, it relies on the product, people, the technology, and the delivery capability that we bring to the table. And staying competitive, and it's not just the rates, it's not just the kind of product, because banking at the end of the day, all of us know, is more or less the same. But how do you define, how do you bundle, how do you make sure that you offer it in a place where the customer is present and relevant, and the right kind of product delivery and the right kind of touch point that we establish? I think that will make the difference, and that is where digitization comes into play very handy. And to us, digitization is a very, very critical element for our growth. The reason being that whatever that we try, the physical branches and the cultural changes that we make there, it'll take a longer time for it to turn out, yield out results. But whereas on the digital side, again, we can leapfrog, just like how India leapfrogged into the data age, how India had leapfrogged into technology and being a leader in this field. And that's exactly what we want to do. And being from Karnataka, being from Bangalore, obviously the entrepreneurial and the startup culture is very, very high here.
Hi, have you heard of the Global CXO Accelerator Summit that's happening right here in Bangalore on May 3rd and May 4th? What? You haven't? It's a 7-day summit, 5 days of learning online, 2 days of learning live from the world's best. We have leaders coming in from Silicon Valley, Sanjay Chandan, who's been the Global Director of Applied Materials Corporation, Kalyani, who's been the Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems. We have Srikrishnan, who's the CEO here of Karnataka Bank and, earlier with Yes Bank. We have Ram Kumar, who's an EVP and who's been here with FIS, and he heads the India and Philippines operations. We have Pradipto, we have Arvind Sitaraman, who's been the president of Cisco earlier. Come and learn from the world's best, because they will tell you about the mistakes you made. They will tell you about what helped them succeed. Learn from leaders who've done it. Stop wasting your time, aimlessly wandering around social media. From WhatsApp University, learn from the world's best. So click on the link below. It's May 3rd and 4th. See you there. Book your early bird tickets. And when you book a 2-day pass, you could win benefits up to 89,000. See you in Bangalore.
Absolutely. And you're bringing in the right requisite experience, your flair for technology, the banking skills, your entrepreneurial skills, your startup experience, all coming into Karnataka Bank at a time more opportune than 100 years. So, I mean, I can imagine that that'll be fantastic. So yeah, that's very, very, very good to hear. Keech, I wanted to know, India is at that cusp of that growth trajectory where in the next 10, 25, 30, 40, as they say, the Amrit Kal, from your eyes, where do you see India heading, and what's the feel on the ground with your experience and your interactions with industry?
So let me tell you that obviously, the Prime Minister and the government are pushing this, and it is only a question of when we will achieve the 1 trillion economy.
Yeah.
It's not something with, if it will happen. It will happen. It is only a question of whether we'll achieve it even much faster than what has been projected. So the way that we are growing, the way that the opportunities are panning out, it appears that, we would probably reach that milestone much faster. So that is one. But fundamentally, the government has done the baseline work, which is, again, I go back to the plumbing part, because whatever is required in terms of creating an ecosystem which is digitally enabled. And this is started from the India stack, then went on to the UPI, and then gone now into the ONDC and OCEN, and then, of course, the account aggregator model with the consent architecture, which is being prescribed by the government for digital consent. And last but not the least, the digital laws that are there required in the country to make sure that all of this is as protected legally as in the physical world. Now, given this background and some of the flagship products that have gone global, which have created such disruptions today in the market, of course, UPI leads the pack, and of course, there are others which are following through. And there are similar breakthroughs that will happen in India very, very soon. So the startup culture and making sure that all of these disruptions that are happening healthy, and making sure that the benefit to the customers in terms of ease, convenience, simplicity, as well as value that the customer gets at the end of the day, I think is been the key drivers for success for most of these initiatives. Now, consider this situation now, where all the participants in the ecosystem, be it small, medium, large, doesn't matter. Now, all of them actually are getting into this access, because today data is enabled and channels are provided to them, and all these platforms offer this ability for them to jump into the digital highway, do their transactions and jump out. It could be completely 100% digital, or it could be a hybrid model where some parts of it are still manual, but most parts are digital and so on. But everyone is adopting to this. So nobody has taught, this Indian population of 1.3 billion, and out of which maybe close to 1 billion are smartphone users. Nobody has been teaching them to say that how do you go to YouTube and download a music video or watch a movie. Watch some live cricket match and look at scores and so on. So then what happens is that literacy in this country, there is always there due to the sheer nature of being Indian. The Indian mind is very inquisitive and very, very developed, in its own way. So as a result, adoption to financial services, adoption to practices, etc. I just recently met a SME client, based in Sangli. And in Sangli, he has got a factory, and he has got a factory in Anantapur. Now, obviously, when we started the relationship with that customer, he happened to be taking those facilities from our Pune branch. But then since he's in Sangli, he does not want to access the Sangli branch. He still wants to transact with the Pune branch, because all of whatever that he needs on a daily basis banking requirements is provided to them on the browser. So through banking, he is doing it. The only question that he had to me was that, sir, right now only LC, letters of credit, I can't open right now digitally. And please get me a feature to open this. So this, I thought, was a clear vindication in terms of what is the level of proliferation that has happened for such category of clients. And this, is not a fancy corporate. He's an entrepreneur, but very, very advanced in his thinking. Very, very, advanced in terms of, let's say, what he wants to do for his business. But it actually provides an opportunity for us to say that. So immediately when I returned to Bangalore, my advice to the team, guidance to the team is that, these are the kind of real pockets that we need to address. And these are the requirements that are coming up. So let us kind of really get all these facilities into our browser and into our mobile banking platform. So this is the key. The second part is that there are lots of users where they started with the browser, which is in the form of desktops, and then over a period of time moved to laptops, then to the tablets, and then into the mobile phones, which are the smartphones. The only difference has been the size of the screen. The size of the screen has varied from 17 to 15 to 13 to 7 to probably a 5 or a 5.5. But then what happens is that, today the form factors that we deliver, it actually makes no difference for them, because the whole experience more or less remains the same irrespective of the size of the screen and irrespective of the access that the device that they use, because the applications that are done today are actually executed in a way whereby the similar experience is provided. So digital first is a very, very common theme which is coming up. That is the part. Now, within digital, whether it is mobile first or whether it is tablet first, etc., that I think is very, very relevant to each business. Each one of them has to adopt based on what their business requirements is, what is relevant for them. Now, as far as the consumer is concerned, now today, ask a normal, banking customer, a white-collared worker. Now, when is the last time that they even visited a bank branch? Right? Now, I think, that's become history. Now, and the ATMs, that's the second part. Now, you ask them this question, that when do you think that you actually went to the ATMs? Now, earlier, they used to visit the ATMs at least a couple of times a month. Now it is reduced in terms of the frequency because of the digitization that has happened in terms of low value transactions.
Absolutely.
And also majority of the other transactions. The third part is that now you'll have to ask them, when is the last time that you actually used your credit card, which is a past, right? So then what happens is that the frequency is coming down again. That is because most cards, even if they use the credit card, they are all virtual and they are actually using it through an app. So as a result, what happens is that you have actually virtualized your life and got into a particular behavior, which it could be mobile driven or it could be browser driven or both. That really doesn't matter, because if you're in office, if you're at home working on the laptop, at which point of time you hop in and hop out into various other services that are required. But when you're on the go, then you
still do your transaction.
So that is where the mobile transactions come in. So this is the change that is happening right now. So to get back to the question that you had in terms of, where are we? Is India in the cusp of this kind of explosion related to data, internet, and then everything related to financial services? The answer is a big yes. Because the adoption levels are very, very high. Even in Karnataka Bank, we have 93% of our transactions which are digital right now, and only 7% happen out of the branches. Obviously, there are a lot of these higher value transactions which still go through the branch or through the back offices. But then again, there's a lot of trust and confidence that is required as far as the customers are concerned. As and when they get comfortable, as and when they believe and they have the trust in the system. That is when the adoption rates will keep increasing. But today, for a normal transaction that is required, now just let us say that, for the average number of statutory payments that a corporate or a mid-sized corporate has to make.
Yeah.
Now, they did not go anywhere else other than being with us in Karnataka Bank, because we facilitate GST payments, we facilitate custom duty payment, we facilitate the direct and indirect taxes, CBDT payments. So as a result, what happens is that all of the statutory requirement that any corporate or a mid-sized or a SME has to fulfill, that is something which is provided. And that is typically the case with also the consumers, who have to pay at least about 3 to 4 times in a year in terms of advance tax and the final taxes and so on. And of course, if you're a GST customer, or if you're a trading or a business user, obviously the GST part also comes in, where there's a monthly and a quarterly kind of behavior that is there. But then on a day-to-day basis, your counterparties, whoever is dealing with you, your associates, all of them today are avoiding checks or avoiding cash payments or avoiding everything, and they are all wanting the direct payments because one, it is instantaneous. There is gratification that happens. Secondly, it facilitates their internal reconciliations and control, because it automatically gets into the backend integration of whatever small ERP or whatever backend accounting application that they have deployed. And the third is that it reduces a lot of the back office accounting work for all parties involved.
Massive cost saving as well.
Absolutely. And this is the way that India is moving ahead. And if you look through this now, and if you compare with any other developed nation or an underdeveloped nation, I think India stands out. The reason being that it does not material for the value or the type of the transaction, but it is actually a function of how the adoption has happened across. And I think that is a huge movement. That's where I was talking to you about a SME customer behavior vis-a-vis what used to be only a privilege for a larger corporate in a style scenario. The last part is that from a developmental perspective. Now, yes, we were talking about the effects of COVID, and then thereafter a lot of businesses which were really impacted and so on. All of them have come out now. And this is ground reality. Now, who survived the COVID have redone their business model. They have kind of created and redefined, a little bit here or there. But at the end of the day, whoever has survived COVID has actually come back, bounced back. And they are not at pre-COVID level now. They are much higher than the pre-COVID level.
The recovery is immense and very fast.
Absolutely. And that is a very, very encouraging factor from an economic perspective. So as a result, we going forward as a country, it is not just the GDP prediction alone, but on the ground reality is a fact that, all of those, badly affected due to other extraneous, impact is all over. I think the way forward has been very, very encouraging, productive. And everyone is back to business and looking at how to kind of grow.
Absolutely.
And entrepreneurship, everything related to data, everything related to digitization, everything related to automation, investment that have been done by the government for the digital infrastructure. All of that is coming into play right now and combining very well.
When are you going to stop procrastinating and taking action? When are you going to learn what it takes to get that 1 CR salary plus and a great lifestyle and a great future for your children and your dreams of becoming a global CXO, a CTO, a CIO, a CISO, whatever you want to be? Stop procrastinating and sign up quickly for this Global CXO Accelerator Summit. It's the first time in India and it's the only event like this in India. You won't find it. So click on the link below. We have leaders like Sanjay Tandon, who's coming in from Silicon Valley. We have Kalyani, who's been a Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems and Intapp. We have Arvind, who's been the President of Cisco, who's got a number of patents to his name. We have Srikrishnan, who's the CEO, and he's going here to share his story with you. We've got Ram Kumar, who's the EVP for FIS for India and Philippines. All these people are here to share their stories to help you. So stop procrastinating and sign up. Stop sitting on the fence. Change your life. Take charge. I want to see you here on May 3rd and 4th. And when you buy a 2-day pass, you could win, benefits up to 89,000. So click below. Click quickly.
Okay, that's great. In fact, very appreciate to know that the fact that you meet a client in Sangli, and the voice of the customer, that the field, right? Because end of the day, it's the customer, right? What we do, the employees, the stakeholders, and you have taken some really genuinely required feedback from the ground from this client, and you're trying to get it sorted for him. So that's how there's so much of equity that you build up with the client.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Keech, this podcast that we have, The Sound of Money, is titled Leadership Unplugged. Essentially, getting to know our guest beyond the BAU banking and beyond the day-to-day work. How is life for you on an off day post your banking hours? Do you get yourself involved in some kind of, how do you kind of unwind? Is the simple question.
I think, I'm a very family person. So we have a lovely family. My wife is a homemaker, but she's also very active, both in terms of cooking. She has her own home kitchen, as well as and it's a very good titled one called The Flavors of Palakkad, which is basically the Palakkad vegetarian cooking. And she did a lot of work in Bombay, and then she wants to obviously do this in Bangalore also now.
Fantastic.
And the two children, grown-up children. So one is married and one is to be married. Both studied in the US, both undergrad and grad school, and they've returned back to India. So they are not going to be in the US. So they work in India, and they do very interesting stuff. Nothing that I do is what they have kind of really followed. Now, so family is very important. So there's a lot of family time that we do, although we are all in very distributed places. But whenever we do get together, there's a lot of family time that we do. The second part to my unwinding is that as I was saying earlier, I watch TV, and that too some Tamil channels. So there's also a very funny comedy channel which is there. So whatever I do, at the end of the day, I need to watch it for about 5-10 minutes just to kind of unwind, stress myself. So that's part of a routine here where it just plays, and then laugh it out, and then I listen to music, devotional Carnatic, as well as Hindi and English Tamil music, and I sing too. I also sing Carnatic music. I have learned at least for the last about 5 to 7 years. I've been learning under a guru. விளையாட இது நேரமா முருகா விளையாட இது நேரமா என் வினையாலே படும் பாடு தன்னை சொல்ல வரும்போது விளையாட இது நேரமா. Very therapeutic, and of course this happens over the weekends. During COVID, we had to switch to online. Thereafter, it has been continuously online only. Earlier, it used to be in person also in Mumbai, but it is helping. So I do kind of sing. My son sings also. My family sings for that matter.
That's great.
All of us sing, some kind of devotional Carnatic music also. I play golf, so I'm an avid golfer. Recently, also, I was part of the Mumbai winners for one of the BMW golf tournament, and then we had to go to the India Nationals and play.
Oh, awesome!
Forget the winning or losing part, but I think, it keeps me busy. Bangalore also, the weather is extremely forgiving. It's fantastic, where golfing is very, very appropriate. So yes, so these are the various things that I do. Of course, watch a lot of movies. Both in theater as well as on OTT. Theater experience, I do. We are very fond of that between me and my wife Suguna, and the reason being that the popcorn and theater experience is something that which goes.
Can't agree with you more. I miss that in Hong Kong though.
So that is how I kind of spend time. So I do have a work-life balance reasonably. Some amount of exercising and walking and gymming that I have to do for this kind of age is something that I do continue to do even now. So every day has some physical activity or the other.
Yeah, I see you that fit on the screen. I was going to ask you what's the secret of that.
Yeah, so this is any day it has to be either a walk day or it has to be a gym day or a golf day or one of those.
Fantastic.
So it's very rare that I miss out. Yes, temporary disruptions do happen due to work, but then I get back to all this, and of course, a very clear dietary regime, which includes truly vegetarian food and making sure that it is very controlled diet. So.
That's great. In fact, you mentioned about your passion of music and your family and you singing and you've been learning. I'm sure at the end of my production, I'm going to ask my production team to take a clip of from your YouTube channel, and it should be a part of this podcast. I'm sure you will agree to that, and you will give your consent to that. Yeah, that's really indeed amazing to know. That in spite of busy life, and how life is busy, we all know that, but it's very important that you keep a passion. Like in my case, it's banking, but I've kept that passion of broadcasting or now this podcasting alive. So it gives you so much of clarity of thought, I will say, actually, just to make sure that there's so much one can do in life.
Absolutely, I can't agree with you more.
So. Yeah. Srikrishnan Keech, or also known as Keech, MD and CEO Karnataka Bank. A pleasure having you on my podcast this morning. Thank you so much for joining on The Sound of Money. So
thank you, Santosh, for your invite, and I'm glad that we did this, and look forward to many such episodes, many such leaders as you progress with your passion.
Indeed, thank you. And well, with that, we come to end of another amazing, super special episode of The Sound of Money. Lot of learnings from Keech. I'm sure you kind of emulate and get them embedded in your working life, and of course even your hobby life. But for me, that is from me, Santosh Sirur and Keech. Thank you so much for joining us on The Sound of Money. Thank you.